Minister. Senator Lindgren.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Cabinet Secretary representing the Minister for Trade and Investment. Can the Cabinet Secretary inform the Senate about the recent Trans-Pacific Partnership finalised by the Turnbull government?
Order. On my left. On my left. On both sides. On my left. Order. The Cabinet Secretary representing the Minister for Trade and Industry, Senator Sinodinos.
Thank you, Mr President, and I thank Senator Lindgren for this important question. Senator from the great—
On my left.
Senator, she's moved. She's moved. She's going up. From the great state of Queensland. Firstly, let me congratulate the Minister for Trade and Investment, Mr Robb, for achieving such a positive outcome for all Australians. Andrew Robb's done a great job. 3 free trade agreements, Japan, Korea, China, and now the crowning achievement, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which involves 12 nations in a multilateral agreement covering around 40% of the world's economic activity, more than $100 billion of Australia's two-way trade. It's the biggest such deal in 20 years, the biggest since the Uruguay round, which shows that this coalition, under both Tony Abbott and Malcolm Turnbull, has been committed to the future prosperity and closer relations with our regional partners. Along with Korea, Japan and China free trade agreements, this agreement will ensure Australia is competitive in key markets as the mining boom winds down and the world's economic centre shifts increasingly to the Asia-Pacific. It covers Brunei, Canada, Chile, Japan, Malaysia, Mexico, New Zealand. You could only dream of this over there. Peru, Singapore, the United States and Vietnam will slash barriers to Australian exports of goods and services and investment. 98% of all tariffs will be eliminated and red tape will be cut across the region. By boosting trade with a third of our export markets, this government is supporting jobs growth across the agriculture, resources, manufacturing, financial, education, health, transportation, telecommunications, hospitality, professional services sectors. You could only dream about this, and it provides a framework for future industries, for innovation, for e-commerce, for IT.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. Order. Senator Lindgren, supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Will the Cabinet Secretary inform the Senate how the Trans-Pacific Partnership will benefit Australia's agricultural sector?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Mr President. The agriculture sector has no greater friend than the coalition. Australia's farmers and associated industries are in for $1 billion boost to their sector. Thanks to the TPP, tariffs will be abolished on a number of our agricultural commodities. Tariffs on beef exported to Canada and Mexico are being eliminated.
Pause
beef
the clock.
safeguards.
Point of order, Senator Whish-Wilson.
Point of order, Mr President. I'm not sure how the minister can tell us this, but he hasn't released a text to the agreement yet.
That's a debating point, Senator Whish-Wilson. Cabinet Secretary, you have the call.
President, beef safeguards in the US market will be removed, and there are further significant tariff reductions on beef to Japan. Both wheat and barley tariffs will be eliminated for exports to Canada and Mexico. Quotas will be expanded for rice, barley and wheat exports to Japan. Tariffs, this particular interest to Senator Edwards, tariffs for wine exports to Mexico, Canada, Peru, Malaysia and Vietnam will be eliminated. You don't like this, do you? Seafood tariffs will be abolished for exports to Canada, Peru, Vietnam, Mexico and Japan, and we'll have increased access to the US sugar market.
Order. Order. On my right. On my right. Senator Dastyari, a point of order.
I just note that the minister keeps making reference to a document. Can he actually table the TPP?
Yeah, that's not a point of order, Senator Dastyari, and the time has now expired for the Cabinet Secretary's answer. Senator Lindgren, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Is the Cabinet—
On my right. Order on my right. Order. Order. Senator Lindgren.
Is the Cabinet Secretary aware of comments made by business and industry leaders about the Trans-Pacific Partnership?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Mr President. The Australian community has welcomed the announcement of the TPP, including our business community. The BCA Chief Executive Jennifer Westacott said, "This is an extraordinary deal for our future prosperity, and we've done it on our terms, something Trade Minister Andrew Robb should be congratulated for, and the TPP puts Australia firmly in the front seat of the biggest global trade deal in 20 years. Ines Willicks from the AIG said the Trans-Pacific Partnership gives easier access into markets that have been particularly tough nuts to crack. And we're pleased to see that negotiators have included mechanisms to address non-tariff barriers within the TPP agreement, ensuring it's a dynamic and practical tool for ongoing trade access." The Cattle Council of Australia President Howard Smith said the agreement signifies a game-changing opportunity for Australian beef and that this rapid growth in market access in the Asia-Pacific will build an unprecedented opportunity for our farmers, local community and businesses.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. The time's expired. On my left.